Hey everyone, it's Stephanie again, and you are tuned in to the review of Married at First Sight, Season 9, Episode 4. So let's just jump in. I really enjoyed last night's episode. I don't know if it's just me, but I think you guys would agree. This season is probably one of the best matched energetically. It's so fun to watch them. It seems like they're all matched really well. Now, that doesn't mean that they'll have longevity, okay? Because we're only on episode 4. But energetically, they're so great together. You know, we see them on their honeymoon. They have the same group honeymoon. I know that people have been, on odds with that. Some people love it, some people don't. I think it's great because they do get to share such a unique experience together. So they get to have that touchstone, but then they also get to have their separate time. So I enjoy that. But when we saw them as a group last night, they have a good time together. There's no awkward couple like we've seen in the last few seasons where there's a couple of couples that really work and then there's a couple of couples that kind of change the dynamic of the group, or they don't really work together and they carry that energy over together. I really enjoy seeing them together. All the guys work well together. All the women work well together. The couples work well together. When they get together, they played volleyball on last night's episode. I really enjoyed seeing that. They have fun. They're all happy. So it was really, really good to see. And it's just a really good shift from the last few seasons that we've been watching. So let's kind of jump into it. And I'm going to start with Deanna and Greg. So Deanna and Greg, listen guys, I think they have potential here, okay? I think they have potential, but there are some things that we're going to need to work on, okay? So Deanna's struggling, and I said she would struggle. She's not like bombing by any means, okay? But she's struggling because this whole thing about dating yourself for 10 years, and we don't know what that means. That means maybe I kind of hung out with people, went on dates, but I didn't really date someone. What we know is that it wasn't any relationship that had longevity that required her to really stretch herself. So I would say that marriage is a mirror. So there's some things that you can only see when you're in a partnership with someone else, and that's when your true self shows up, or that's when an aspect of yourself shows up that you would never really see because there is no situation that would put you in it. Sharing a life with someone highlights all the good, and it definitely highlights all of the bad. So in her getting herself together and saying, hey, I've done these things, and once again she kind of goes around tangible things. I got my master's, I bought my home, I did this. Maybe she has more self-awareness, and some of that will translate into the relationship well, but there are some aspects of that that won't work. And we've started to see tinges of that. So Deonna tends to be a little snippy. And I think that's her being funny and sarcastic, but I also think that's like her being guarded. So in being guarded, she is pushing him away, even though I think she really does like him, but she's pushing him away in order not to be like left behind. Whatever that last situation happened, that last relationship, whatever that was, that had her put her walls up. And so we're seeing her struggle with just learning how to put her walls down. I think she wants to, and I think she knows she has to. She even said that, I know I have to, but knowing and doing are two different things. So we see her be a little slippy, which can be off-putting. Like sometimes I watched last night and I was like, okay, enough, that's going to come off a certain way, in a certain tone. That very same thing is going to come off really off-putting, or some of it already did. Some of the things that she brought up to Greg was him complimenting her too much. Now, I'm like 50-50 on this because Greg is he's open, he's sweet, he's just trying to let his wife know how he feels, he's excited, but he's a little, I would say he's a little awkward in terms of really knowing how to kind of finesse those compliments. It can be overkill because a lot of us will hear her say that and we'll say, oh, she shouldn't say that. And, there are women who are not getting compliments, and wait, one day he won't give you any compliments. Okay. You guys, we have to just look at it for what it is. She's right in saying, listen, when you kind of throw all these balls at me, it's like, I don't really know which one to pick. And really over time, that amount of compliments just back to back to back, it just feels ingenuine, even though I believe he's 100% genuine, but it does start to feel ingenuine. So I think he has to learn how to just just be a little more smooth, be a little more relaxed. Don't feel like you have to get this stuff out because you're maybe unsure. And so he wants her to know. I think as they get to know each other and spend more time together, they'll be more relaxed and be able to not feel the need to address things so quickly in the positive or in the negative. So I know that's one thing that stuck out to me yesterday when she said, you give me too many compliments. And because she's already kind of like a jabber, she jabs a little bit, she does a little digs, and we most of us, I think, are rolling our eyes at it because we're like, girl, stop. I see the value in what she's saying because it can come off as a lot. And I think they just have to learn each other. But I'm glad that they were able to talk about it. On his end, Greg brought up, because the guys got together and they talked about things, and he brought up to the guys that the only real concern he has about her is that she hasn't been in a relationship for 10 years. And we knew that would come up because that is somewhat alarming. And to hang out with people or do whatever, it doesn't count enough to say, well, you don't know, because I've seen a lot of comments, well, you don't know if she's hung out with people or she's dated people. It's very different than really being in a relationship, as we all know. The level of responsibility is very different. So he's concerned about that, and he brought that up. And I thought she was going to kind of get upset just because that's the energy that she gives me, that she can go to the left very quickly. But she said, that's a valid point. I do understand that you're concerned, and I'm glad that went smoothly, and I'm also glad that he was able to communicate that, and she was able to receive that, and they moved along. They went on their hammock, and they tried to get more romantic, and had a massage on the beach, and talked about their likes and dislikes. And I think, once again, Greg is like, do you like this? Is this romantic? And I'm like, ugh, relax, take the cues. She asked you for a massage. Like, yes, it's romantic. We're at the beach, candlelight. So these are things that they'll just, as they get more comfortable with each other, they will get to know. We also saw them do ziplining, and it was funny because I remember hearing Greg say he wants somebody super adventurous, and they're doing this super adventurous thing, and he's not really he's not really doing well with it. But maybe it's the heights thing. But either way, it was good to see him step out of his comfort zone, her support him, and them have that good time together and that new experience together. So I really enjoyed watching Deanna and Greg. They have some quirks, as do we all. I mean, couples who have known each other for many years have their quirks to work out. So these are just some things that I'm seeing with Deanna and Greg. But so far, so good. I think that they are going to get more comfortable as time goes on, and as they get more relaxed within the relationship and within themselves. So that's Deanna and Greg. So the next couple we have is Matt and Amber. So Matt and Amber, they consummated, okay? They got to it. They didn't waste any time. They got to it. They went with the flow. They enjoyed it. I really enjoy seeing them. They both seem to be very eager, especially Amber, I'll say, okay? Matt is eager in the sense that he really wants it, but he doesn't show up in like a very bubbly way. But Amber kind of bops around, and she has high energy. A lot of the women have high energy. Elizabeth, Iris, and Amber. The three of them out of the four have very high energy. They're very excited to be together. They talked about, that night together and how it felt right. And I'm happy for them. I mean, they seem to be enjoying each other. They're doing different activities together. I think where I see maybe a storm brewing for them is when things get back home and we get back into the day-to-day life, which I think will happen with all of them. But I think with some of the stuff happening, like I was watching last night and I saw Jamie and her on the beach, and I was thinking, oh, this is such a beautiful shot. And then I'm thinking, his parents don't even know where he is. Like, his family doesn't even know that he's doing this. And despite whatever may be going on, and that might be good for the time, that stuff will come up because, the extension of you as family, and they just can't not be involved. Not that they have to be involved in your marriage, but your spouse will want to know kind of where you come from, and where this leads to, and what the foundation is, and all that stuff is linked to family. So it's good to see them just enjoying themselves, because I feel like later on that stuff will come up for them, and it might cause a little dissension, or maybe Matt, because I feel like Matt has the tendency to possibly shut down when things are uncomfortable for him, or get upset. It's just like an energy thing that I pick up with him. So I think that when he's maybe in a position to really have to discuss it, that may or may not go well. But right now they're kind of enjoying themselves. They did a tour on the island. They're hanging out. They're having a really good time. One thing that stuck out, because they flipped back to last episode when she was joking about Matt the fifth or something, because he is the fourth. Me and my husband were talking about this. One of the things, and we see Matt like be really uncomfortable with it, and everybody's joking saying, oh, it's like because it's day 2 and she's talking about kids. And I think there's some truth to that. But I think another thing that stuck out to the both of us, and we had mentioned it last night, was because of what's going on with his dad, and because he hasn't spoken to his father in 2 years, and there's a lot of hurt there with the family. And he said, I'm very close to my family and I wish things weren't the way they were. And all these things that are wrapped up in kind of like turmoil right now. I think the idea of naming his kid, or even having a kid and having the same name as dad, I feel like there's so many hurtful and negative emotions. Like if you're not talking to your dad and you're really hurt and the family's broken and whatever the case may be, the continuation even in name, even though it seems basic, like, oh, if I'm the fourth, then so-and-so will be the fifth, the continuation in name is not exciting because the relationship is severed back there. So to continue that on, even in name, is kind of like, okay, wrap it up, let's move on. Like that's what his energy gave me. And I don't know if anybody else picked up on that, but I think that's really interesting and important to realize that there's some family turmoil going on. So in extending the family between him and Amber, even though, it's so soon, and she's joking and she's kind of like, listen, I'm jumping in the deep end. Like we're married, this is it. I don't care if it's day 2. Those are just some things that stuck out to me. So let me know what you guys thought, because, me and my husband discussed that, and he definitely said from a male perspective, that was the first thing that came to mind. Like, okay, he's not even talking to his dad. And my husband is actually the fourth as well. So there is some similarity that he understood in that, had it been that situation. So that is Madden Amber. The next couple that we have is Iris and Keith. So I'm growing to love, like, all of the couples and their quirks, but definitely Iris and Keith are my faves. I mean, if I could just pluck them together, they are really, really good together. I think they just have such positive energy. He's patient. She's also very high energy. She's patient. She's very deliberate about what she wants. And we see that in the conversation that she has with him on the beach about the longevity of their marriage and what he sees as longevity. And she kind of gets a little like, almost like she was almost about to like beat him down with it. But she really wanted to know, like, how do you see this? Do you see this as like an 8-week experiment, or do you see this as something that, okay, after the 8 weeks, we really start this relationship? And I would venture off to say that most of them see it as, hoping to continue a marriage. I think that only a few people probably got on there for other reasons, but I would venture off to say that most people who get on really hope that it lasts. But she had to ask. She had to know. She wanted to have that conversation, and I'm glad she had it. He was able to say, listen, I take this seriously. At this point, it's kind of like, why not? I take this seriously, because she asked, you're attractive. Why did you do this experiment? He's wanting something that has longevity. Obviously, it hasn't worked for him, and he wanted to take this chance because he does see it going beyond the 8 weeks, and that is the goal. So it brought her a lot of peace to hear that he's just as intentional and as deliberate about doing this beyond the 8 weeks if it continues to work out well to where they mesh well. I think obviously one of the reasons why she asked, or the main reason why she asked, besides just the enormity of getting married to a stranger, is because she is a virgin. And I'm not going to discuss the virgin thing too much, because I think it's old already. Like, I don't even like to identify her as the virgin. There's so many other things about her, but clearly that's kind of the way she's presented. But I know that that's a big deal. And that was my one concern with her, that she risked such a sacred thing on this experiment that may or may not work out. So that's where I was like, God, that's a wild card. I wouldn't have done it. I don't know that I would have advised her to do it. So I really want it to work out. Now, in real life, you can save yourself and it may not work out anyways, but that's a different thing. That's a little more traditional. That's a little, I would say, less risky. But that is really why she was asking, and he answered her well. So they had a good time. He took her swimming with stingrays. They had fun. They really enjoyed themselves. They're comfortable around each other. I love that they have really good physical chemistry. They touch a lot. I think everybody does, actually. Even Deanna and Greg, who I think is, if I had to rate the couples 1 through 4, are number 4 in terms of like immediate chemistry. Even they have like a really good, they touch, they kiss, like light interactions that show comfortability. But Iris and Keith have a natural chemistry. And here's the thing. In one conversation, he asked, because he wanted to know about what does sex mean to you. I thought that was a great question, because let's get into it. And let's not make it like just because you're a virgin means that you've never seen a man. Like, clearly she knows what to do with a man, okay? Just because she hasn't done it doesn't mean she doesn't know. And they really went into what does sex mean. And if you realized, she has been very specific about sexual intercourse. So she may have done other things, and that's perfectly fine. But I think that's important for him to even know, for them to have a dialogue and see where each other are. And that's just a conversation that I think any couple needs to have. Where are you comfortable sexually? What are you willing to do? What aren't you willing to do? What is like absolutely not? What is, okay, I'll try that. Let's try something fun. Whatever. So I think with her in particular, that conversation led to a very specific thing, and he was able to say, okay, she's been around the block. She maybe is not parked, but she's circled around. She knows what's here. So it was kind of good for them to see. One other thing that I really enjoyed about watching Keith and Iris last night was them have the conversation about what annoys them. So at first, when it started, I was like, oh God, this is like too soon. But it went off really well. And I think that that's good that they were able to have that conversation so early and just talk about little quirks, because for me, it's not necessarily the big things. We get so wrapped up in the big things in life. And to me, love is in the details. The devil's in the details sometimes. And so these little things add up and they become like a huge thing. Okay, if you think about the little things, think about them as one brick. And so one brick is not a big deal, but you turn around and there's a whole wall made of one brick, so, or several one bricks. So she kind of talked about him being on his phone a lot more, and kind of the way he did it, and he does longer times and she's more immediate. He doesn't necessarily agree. Listen, that was such a real life conversation, because me and my husband just had that conversation recently about like, certain parameters that we want to put around that, just because we live in a very high-tech world and you do business on your phone and you're so connected, social media and just so many things. And so what's our time off and what's our time out? And sometimes you have those parameters, like we have those parameters, date night, certain things, it's like we're not available to anyone. But then there's certain things that happen. There's an emergency, or there's things that you need to be available for. And so over time, you tend to kind of regress back to old habits. So it's good to have like a refresher. So I'm glad that they had that conversation. Whether he agrees with it or not, it's something that is now at the forefront of his mind because she mentioned it. And it might be something that he realizes. Sometimes we don't realize how much we do something because we're in it. So if we're in it, we can't see around it. But she kind of says, hey, this is a lot for me. Just being the external perspective, this is a lot for me. So that's Keith and Iris. I really, really enjoyed watching them. I did watch Unfiltered, and I just want to say, because we were talking about his mom telling him about her virginity, and I said, as you guys know, that I really hated that she did that. I like his mom. She's a little messy, sassy. Hopefully she keeps it in check, but I really like his mom. She seems cool, but I didn't like that she did that. And a lot of people kind of chimed in and said they would do that. They have children. She was trying to protect him and blah, blah, blah. And I still stick to the fact that he's a grown man. If he would have ran into the virgin on the street, he would have been able to handle it without mommy. And on Unfiltered, she said, I wish that he would have told me that he already knew, because it would have taken a lot of anxiety off of me, but I wish that's something that I was able to share with my husband myself. So, it validated kind of like what a lot of us felt, that despite what her intentions were, which were good, I'll agree, it just wasn't her place and it shouldn't have happened. So just so you guys know, if you guys don't watch Unfiltered, it comes on either before or after the show. I don't know anymore. But it's 30 minutes with some of the cast every week and one of the experts, and then, so they talk about that. So it's always really good insight to watch as they watch and get like the real scoop that you're not able to get on the show. So that's that. Last but not least, we have Elizabeth and Jamie. So listen, Elizabeth and Jamie are my wild card couple. Okay, when they presented him as the picky guy who was very straight-laced, and we saw him folding something, I think, in like one scene, and it was very tight. We thought, okay, this guy's gonna be militant. He's not gonna like her. We saw him fawning all over the I don't know, she wasn't a bartender, but when they were playing cards, you know, at the bachelor night. So I think a lot of us, even me, subconsciously thought that that was his type. So I didn't even see Elizabeth even being his type aesthetically. And I definitely thought that her energy would be like a turnoff to him. Surprise, joke's on us. He really, really likes her. He's really interested. Now, I don't know if that's, you know, for fun. I don't know if that's like a momentary thing, or if it's long term, but I know in this moment he says that he really enjoys her, and I'm quite surprised. I will say this, her personality is good for him in some ways because he can be very regimented, and I think that that is helpful. Like I don't know, I mean, sometimes I can be goofy, but my husband is very goofy, so sometimes like his antics relax me and make me even, you know, more funny or more goofy or whatever. So I think like having opposites is really, really good because it can offset and cause you to relax. And in some ways, you know, she'll need him to, okay, let's rein it back. Let's do the numbers. Let's kind of figure this out. Let's be a little more strategic. So in that way, I do think that their personalities, although vastly different, work very well together. But I just, you know, I'm surprised to see how it's developing and how they're getting along so well. I think right now, the hyperness and her all over the place, I think that's fine. I don't know. I'm interested to see when they go home, how that will be. When they get a place together and how that is. Because we romanticize getting a place together and, oh, it's going to be so great. You know, we're going to get a place together. We'll pick a couch. You know, all that stuff sounds so great. But then when you realize you guys do things polar opposite and all the minutia that is wrapped around just living together, we will see how that goes. Because it's difficult when you don't have complete polar opposites. So I think that might be when we see some of her personality tendencies and his personality tendencies not mesh well. But we did get a piece of that last night. So they had a good time. You know, they have really good physical chemistry. You know, nothing of a red flag until they're leaving playing group volleyball. And so the thing is, in the confessional, we hear Elizabeth saying she was hot, she wanted to change, she wanted to take a shower. You know, Jamie's still down there, the other couples are still down there. She's gone for a certain amount of time. They didn't really communicate. Here's the thing, because when they talk about it, they say, we miscommunicated, but they didn't communicate. Neither one, you know, she didn't say, hey, I'm leaving and I'm coming back. He didn't say, where are you going? Or, you know, let me go look for her. She's been gone too long. And so she comes in and she has like a tantrum, for a lack of a better word. She has a tantrum. She doesn't really address it with any type of maturity. She kind of just goes off about why he doesn't look for her, and she's been gone for 2 hours, and he had lunch by himself, and he is, you know, he's very stoic. He's like, okay. And he says something that's very interesting. He says, you know, when somebody comes at him like that and attacks, he has a fight or flight response and he doesn't want to fight, so then he kind of shuts down. I'd love to see where that comes from because I know that stems from somewhere, but I really love that when she said, I forgot what she said, but he says, like, I'm not a mind reader. I think a lot of us women do that. I will raise my hand, I'm guilty too, when you just feel it inside yourself and it's so obvious to you what he should have done and you don't always communicate it, and you can learn and you can get better. But we do that, and I think a lot of men feel that way, that they're not mind readers, but, you know, their wives or girlfriends want them to be. And so he says that, and their communication style is just really going nowhere because she's very emotional and very overt in expression, and he is, you know, not. He is not, and he is stoic, and he's kind of like, you know, she wants him to feel. She's like, you don't care, and he says, I don't care, you know. And when he said that, I wasn't moved at all. I was like, he doesn't mean that. He doesn't mean it that way. I don't care about all of this, you know. And eventually they work towards it, and get to a better place where he says, you know, I'm sorry I hurt your feelings, because she was like, her feelings are hurt. Her big thing was, you didn't look for me. Okay, I was gone. You didn't look for me. You didn't care where I was. You ate lunch by yourself. Her thing is almost like feelings of abandonment. But here's where that stems from, because it really didn't have to get that big, and I'm glad they were able to squash it and just kind of move on and joke and enjoy the rest of the episode that we saw, because next episode is a continuation of the honeymoon as well. When I saw her tantrum and acting out and, why didn't you come look for me? And her thing was like, you didn't come look for me. You don't care. That was like daddy's girl all around. I mean, because daddy would have looked for her. And we already know that they have, from what we've seen, an unhealthy attachment, an unhealthy, dynamic to where, is there room for a husband? Because your dad is standing there, you know? And so for her, she's so used to her dad, like, paying so much attention to her and giving her the attention of like a toddler, that she wants her husband to now fill his shoes. And she needs to learn how to have a healthy, mature, responsible dynamic with a man. So your parent is usually your first opposite sex relationship, whether when you learn the dynamic of, you know, daughter and father, like, this is the first man I know, son, this is the first woman I know. So we tend to either model in who we choose, or we choose the opposite. So she's wanting this guy to model her dad up until an unhealthy point, because she wants him to be as doting and as debilitating and handicapping as he is, because dad is still paying for your renewal for your car online. Like, you're 30, go online and do it. But dad takes care of her, so he wants the same thing. She wants the same thing with Jamie, and it's not going to work. And Jamie's not going to give her that. Jamie's going to support her and care for her as a husband should, but he's not your dad. And their dynamic has to be different. Like, your dad does have to be different, because he's your dad, than your husband. Your husband does have to treat you like a wife, a grown woman, not a little girl. So that whole tantrum was wrapped up in daddy. Like, all I saw was pink glitter and dolls throwing all over the place. Like, that's what I envisioned, because I was just like, okay, she needs to get it together. Besides just learning to communicate more effectively and more maturely, this is wrapped up in just having somebody who's doted on her to a fault, and now she's transferring that expectation to her husband, which will not work. So that's it. I know I said a mouthful, but like, last night was a really good episode. I kind of enjoyed it from start to finish with everything. So you guys let me know what you thought. As always, don't forget to subscribe, comment, and like. And also click the notification buttons or the bell, so that you can get notified when I put these videos up. Because a lot of people have said they couldn't find me until like last episode or last post. I don't know why that is, but I'm here and I'm back and I'm enjoying talking to you guys again. So yeah. Everybody have a great day and a great weekend.